out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube. We're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And here is Stephen Van Tassel with today's topic.
Thanks, Frank. Stephen Van Tassel here, wildlife control consultant. Another episode of Living the Wildlife. Hey, I'm here with Gerrod Walker of, what was the name? When Nature Calls Pest Control out here in Colorado. Welcome to Pest Geek Podcast, Gerrod. Say hello to the crew.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Hello.
All right. Well, I've been out spending some time. Gerrod's been good enough to let me hang around with him for a few days while he's doing some work, learning some stuff, seeing his methods, and getting a bunch of photos. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to interview him and have him talk a little about his business and how he got started in this. And so hope you all find it interesting. So a little bio, a little bit of information that you can maybe learn something from his experience. So certainly he's had some big challenges and big successes within this industry. So why don't we get started? So my first question for you, Gerrod, is what made you get into this business of wildlife control?
You know, believe it or not, I started out in social services early on. I worked as a case manager and a counselor for a mental health organization, and I got kind of burned out. Needed a change. Pay was low, and the results were oftentimes even lower. I got an opportunity to study through a correspondence course, Purdue University. Studied, got my license in the state of Illinois, and quickly took a contract working overseas for the U.S. Army. It was back in 2004. Worked for them for 2 years, killing pests and a lot of rodent work, a lot of insect work, and a little bit of feral dog and cat control in the deserts of Kuwait.
When did you start doing wildlife control?
Wildlife control started in Kuwait. I had the opportunity to meet a challenge that other operators had been unable to resolve. I had the opportunity to be tasked with catching feral cats on Camp Doha in Kuwait.
And when was that?
That was back in June of 2004. I worked on Camp Doha for about 3 months. Trapped over 200 cats in that time.
Wow! So I guess you know how to catch some cats then. No kidding. All right, so you've been in the industry now, so it's 2019. Started since 2004, so it's really about 15 years you've been involved in this. So you started your business. What was your biggest challenge starting your business when you got back to the States?
Yeah, so I came back from the government contract, and I actually worked for Winnebago County Animal Control in Illinois for a little while. Got some experience there, and then realized the great need for wildlife control in the state of Illinois. The demand for wildlife services was incredible in my area. Lots of calls that the government couldn't handle, and so. In the beginning, it's just a challenge as far as getting customer base to getting, your word out. Back then, the yellow pages were my go-to. And so that's where I started my advertising. And it actually worked quite well back then.
When you started your company, now that you look back, what do you wish you knew then that you knew now, that you know now?
Yeah, it was a huge learning curve. Back then there wasn't, it wasn't as much involvement on a state or a national level as far as training. And so it was all a learning curve. You had to learn everything. And the way that I did that was to reach out to members of NUCOA and to reach out to other wildlife control operators in my area and to network. And, I would suggest that anybody getting in this industry do a lot of networking, really have those resources available to reach out to.
And what would be a suggestion for getting some of those networking opportunities?
Really, training events are great places to meet people. NUCOA has some wonderful events, opportunities, that you can run into people and develop those lifelong relationships. Oftentimes that's what I get most out of these training events is the opportunity to network and to gain those valuable resources.
All right, for those of you out there in Pest Geek world who don't know what NUCOA is, that's the National Wildlife Control Operators Association. It's just pronounced NUCOA, NWCOA, and it's the National Association for Wildlife Control Professionals. So if you're interested in joining, it'd be great to have you on board. Just Truth in Advertising. I'm a board member of NUCOA. I've mentioned that certainly in other previous podcasts, and also in Truth in Advertising. Gerrod is a member of NUCOA, but he's also a CNI, which is a certified NUCOA instructor, because he was instrumental in helping with the BAT Standards course, as well as BAT Standards 2, which is relatively recent. So I suspect, given your work with bats, is that one of your specialties? Is that one of your specialty animals?
I love bat work. Back in Illinois, a lot of our competitors struggled with bats and oftentimes just didn't want those jobs. It's a lot more heights. It's a lot more danger. It's a lot more work and effort. And bats can fit through incredibly tiny places. And so we took that on. About 50% of my work in Illinois was bats.
So what brought you to Colorado?
The state of Illinois has a very difficult testing process. We found that year after year, we would hire a highly qualified technician, train him, and find that he couldn't pass the test. And at some point we just had to make a decision. When you're a small organization and you're getting older, this work is very physically demanding, and you have to make that decision at some point. Do I cut my losses? Do I leave this state? Do I give up my entire customer base and my solid income to try to grow in a state where I can do that doesn't have as restrictive licensing?
So that sounds like a pretty heavy challenge. So I don't want to get too far into that per se right now. Maybe that'd be for a future podcast. So you talked about how you got started, your specialty animal. What would be your greatest, most interesting wildlife control job that you think is funny or interesting, or something that would be entertaining for the audience or informative for the audience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a hard question to answer because there's just so many. If you narrowed it down by species, I could be more specific. But I'll tell you, there's raccoons have always I've always delighted in working with raccoons. We've had situations where they've fallen through ceilings and ended up inside the home, middle of the night calls. I remember a situation where a gentleman called me in the middle of the night. Just I could barely understand what he was saying. He's screaming into the phone, and ultimately he had raccoons in his attic. It was a denning female, a sow, with kits, and those young. Oftentimes the female will seek a denning site that's protected from the male. And so what had happened in this situation was a male came in and was fighting in the ceiling above, and of course the ceiling wasn't in the best of condition. Otherwise it probably would have withheld that. But two of them came crashing through and continued their fight on down in the bedroom of this man's home. It crashed right through the closet of the bedroom.
Oh, gosh.
Him and his significant other were hysterical and running around, and very interesting. We got him out physically, and got the rest of the young out in the next couple of days there through searching for them and trapping, and resolved that through that.
Well, you've certainly been in the business for a while. We could now probably call you an old timer. You may not want to hear that, but that's you are certainly have some longevity there. So as you look over the industry, what do you think the industry has done well? And then follow up with where you think the industry needs to grow or improve or change. So as you look over the decades, what has improved and what should continue to improve over time?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and one that we could probably talk for a couple hours on. I guess to summarize this, I would say that the industry has come far. It's a relatively new industry that's going through growing pains, and so there's difficulty in getting everybody on the same page. Everybody that that comes to these training events certainly has a competitive edge, and I think that there's been substantial improvement in the training aspect. I think through NUCOA, there's been opportunities that we can standardize certain things. We can start to bring norms to our industry, and through that, build standards and best management practices. And so I think that's a very good thing. Where we can improve, there's a world of improvement left to do in this industry. There's oftentimes a need for mentoring in our industry. I think there's some opportunities for that. I think more lobbying on the benefit of our members, lobbying for our industry, more organization, more training events, more certification opportunities. There's certainly a lot of improvement that can be done down the road.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a huge need for improving our work with in the lobbying side in terms of regulating agencies and improving laws and regulations. That's what I envy about the pest control field. The pest control field seems to have regulations and processes that are more business friendly to get the job done, where we're still often restricted, depending what state you're in. To be fair, this is state driven. But there's a lot more unanimity among states for pest control sides of things than it is for wildlife control. We're still sort of saddled with some of those old regs that are treating us still like glorified fur trappers. Not that there's anything wrong with being a fur trapper, that's not the point, but that wildlife control is different than fur trapping. So yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. Well, let's break this down a little bit from the 30,000 foot level and let's get to something. What is your favorite set? If you're putting a set out for an animal, whether it be squirrel, raccoon, whatever it is, what would be your favorite? Let's start with your favorite trap and then talk about your favorite set and then your favorite bait.
Well, for structural trapping, I really feel that the best method to rid animals from structures is through blind set or positive set trapping. I personally like the term entry-exit point trapping, but that really, the industry hasn't adopted that language. It's more of a positive and blind set. Essentially, I locate where the animals are regularly coming in and out from the structure and focus our trapping events or trapping at that location or multiple locations. In doing this, you're ensuring that you're targeting the correct animal. You're effective quicker. When you catch an animal that's lactating, you know that you've got young inside, so you know how to address that. I think that as far as the favorite trap, I'm a big fan of a lot of Comstock traps. I like the different triggering mechanism. I think that they don't recognize that a lot. The do-it-yourselfers don't set traps that have those same mechanisms, and so it's something different. When you set it on the entry-exit point or the positive or blind set right there on that point of entry, you gain a significant advantage. As far as favorite traps, I don't like to toot my own horn, but the Comstock Walker Edition, which is a smaller version of a double door with a nose cone on one end. That trap is a smaller version of that is easily mounted up on a soffit or a soffit roof intersection. You can put more traps in the truck because it's a smaller unit. The animal tends to enter it a little bit more correctly, so you get less false triggers. Excellent and versatile trap.
So the Comstock Walker Edition. Wow. So you have a trap named after yourself. So describe that trap a little bit more. I know the Comstock has that wishbone trigger that's in the middle, sort of like almost like a conibear style type trigger to it rather than a treadle, which is kind of neat. So talk about the dimensions. What makes that trap? You talked about a little nose cone action, but is there anything different about this Comstock trap that's the Walker Edition?
Well, just simply the Walker Edition is a smaller dimension. It was, I approached Jim Comstock many years ago, and I said, hey, I would like this trap that you already manufacture. It's about the normal size of the trap is, I believe, 36 inches, and I think it's 11 by, maybe.
Is it 10? Is it a little bit more?
Something like that.
Yeah.
The Walker Edition is it's 9 inches by 6 inches with a 36-inch length. It's got a nose cone.
And what is that trap for? I mean, 9 inches by 6 inches, so that's 9 inches tall, 6 inches wide. And what is that trap for?
It really shines when there's coon inside. It's really a very specific trap for coon.
Nice.
Double
door?
It is double door.
Double door?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think the double door allows the animal to see no mesh behind those triggers. And it's a natural thing for the animal to want to exit when they can see clearly that the other side is open. So there's less resistance and less bust outs what I would suggest is when you're trapping on the structure and there's multiple entry exit points, that you set a trap at each entry exit point. I know this is more work, but when you do it that way, you're covering all your bases. There's less likeliness that raccoon is going to go through an area that is not already damaged.
So what does it cost? Do you know?
So I believe, it's been a while since I purchased any. The cost last time I purchased it was around $145 plus shipping and handling.
Okay.
I know that though they last forever, so that I've never had one have to be replaced yet.
Okay, and what is so for Truth in Advertising? What's your commission on each sale of the trap?
Well, I don't earn any commission on it.
It doesn't earn anything. Wow. Okay. Well, maybe in the future you will. So, but anyway, so you can see that there's been some development there. So a 6-inch. So you're not seeing any refusal. You haven't noticed any refusals from a raccoon going through a 6-inch wide trap.
No, I've seen a tremendous amount of acceptance of that trap. I think what makes that trap, obviously its size makes it easier and more versatile to place up on a structure in a difficult location.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is.
But
less room in the truck too.
Right.
Yeah. And so what is your favorite when you're using a bait set? So you talked about you love positive sets, and just to refresh people's memories, if you're new to the podcast, I have a previous edition where I talk about the difference between a positive set, blind set, and baited set. So when you're using a baited set, what would be if you had to have one bait on your proverbial island where you can only have one bait, what would it be? What would be your favorite go-to bait?
That's a hard thing to answer. I think that, most animals, let's just say raccoon. Raccoon tend to, at least in Illinois, tend to seek a protein-based food source when it's winter and when they're looking for food sources that are not naturally occurring. When there's a lot of berries that are dropping, mulberries, I like to switch to a sweet bait. Fatal Attraction is excellent. For me, excellent results is shellfish-based, protein-based, attractant. It's gonna attract a lot of different creatures. It's kind of a long call to it, but that is highly appealing to them. Mellow yellow.
And who manufactures Fatal Attraction?
I think it's Blackie's Blend.
Blackie's Blend.
But
Okay.
I'm not.
Shout out for Blackie's there. Yeah. And you said you like Mellow Yellow, and who manufactures that one?
Wildlife Control Supplies.
Wildlife Control Supplies. Okay, that's out of Connecticut. So, any others?
In my area, I like to use persimmon oil.
Okay.
For trailing lure. If another trailing lure that I commonly use is yellow stripe. I use that a lot as well.
And yellow stripe, who makes that?
That's a WCS. Also,
another Wildlife Control Supplies. Wow. Okay. And so you've had good success. So how far have you drawn a raccoon using a trailing set? When for those listeners who aren't familiar with the trailing set, what would you use a trailing set for? What advantages does it offer you?
I like trailing scents and oils and lures when the situation is such where you cannot legally trap where you want to place that trap. I'd say for you newcomers, the trap placement is everything. You want to put the trap as close to where that animal's living. Well, let's say the animal is living on the neighbor's property, and you can't set up legally there, or there's too much risk for damage of theft or of your equipment. Trailing lures are a great way to draw that animal in from further locations, and I've used it up to maybe 30, 40 feet away.
Wow! And how many drops per foot? I mean, how do you apply that? I mean, how much are you using to get that as a drop a foot? Is it how do you use it?
I don't really do the drop method as much as I use it pretty liberally.
Okay.
I'll use it as a stream.
All right. Squirt bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And pricey? Does it get a little expensive, or is it just worth it given the need that you have?
We've always maintained that you should price it out so that you're making good money on that job, so that whatever you need is covered in those costs. And so for us, we just price it out where that job is worth it, and we'll use whatever we need to resolve it.
Well, you're in a beautiful location here in Colorado. So before we wrap up, I want to give you the opportunity to give a shout out about your business and talk about the services you provide. And, I know you're looking for perhaps a staff member that might come on board and work with you. So this would be an opportunity for you to shout out to the world. And maybe someone wants to come out and work for you out here in gorgeous Colorado.
Yeah. I fell in love with Colorado a few years ago when I had a training opportunity out here, and I just absolutely fell in love with the folks out here in Colorado and the beautiful scenery. I felt called to this area. We really want to to mention how blessed we are to be here, I think, and we're looking forward to really expanding. We're excited to be part of Colorado, and I really think that there's a huge potential in the future for our services here. There's some amazing growth in our state here, and that's something I'm not used to. In Illinois, growth is very stagnant. Here in Colorado, you see buildings going up all over the place.
That's true. Yes.
It's truly a remarkable situation to see this growth here.
And just to let people know, probably the easiest way for people to identify where you're at is that you're outside of Colorado Springs, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to figure out where he is, that would be south of Denver, up in the mountains, west of Colorado Springs. Is that about right?
Yeah, we service all of greater Colorado Springs, and then for about an hour drive west into the mountains. So that's our general service range. We go up to 2 miles or 2 hours in any direction for bats, and so we're actually located in Floris, Colorado.
And it is absolutely gorgeous. So if you're looking for work, or you're looking to need a big job done, and you're looking for some additional labor, definitely give Gerrod Walker of when nature calls pest control a ring, he'd be happy to work up with you. You have a big job coming up too right now, I understand.
I do.
Big job. So he is incredibly skilled. I had the opportunity to stay with him for a few days, so we'll give him a little shout out here. He's a great contributor to the association and to our industry. Gerrod, want to thank you for letting me hang out with you for a few days and see your work and see your system. I love the technology that you bring to bear to your work, and his truck is absolutely divine. So that'll come up later. Maybe that'll come up later in another podcast. But thanks for taking the time with us.
Well,
and we're gonna finish up here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed the colorful banter. I've enjoyed the learning from you and having your wisdom be brought to Colorado. Thank you.
All right. Well, you're too kind. All right, everybody. This is Stephen Van Tassel, wildlife control consultant. If you have any more ideas for a podcast, definitely drop me an email at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. And hey, be safe out there. Back to you, Frank.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.